CS greetings, CSGOers. It is IX Streams, and joining me for this very special episode of Looking Back is Sonic. How you doing, man?
I'm getting you, Mike.
Superb, man. Aside from how ridiculously hot it is in Joburg today.
Yeah, it is a warm day. Might go for a swim later.
Yeah, I think if we could do this interview like sitting in a pool or in a jacuzzi or something, I
Nice
think that
chill
might be
vibe.
preferable. The only
Oh,
thing that I think would be weird is wearing a hat in a jacuzzi, because
yeah. We'd have to sit at opposite ends of the jacuzzi as well, just to make things less awkward.
yeah, no, that would be super awkward. But this interview overall, I hope it's not going to be super awkward. Let's see. But you haven't really spoken to a ton of people in this way, so I'm really pleased that you said yes to doing this, and I hope you enjoy the process, and I really hope viewers enjoy hearing from you.
It's good to be here, man. Always keen to talk to people, one way or another.
Awesome, awesome. So let me just give a slight introduction to the one person watching this who doesn't know who you are for some reason, like because they got lost on the way here and were expecting to be somewhere else entirely.
Mm,
So, I mean, what you guys may know, you should know, is many people see Sonic as the best player in South Africa. I mean, he's been called that by a lot of people, including Pansy, and she's an international caster, so I guess she knows what she's talking about. I mean, you've got numerous titles under your belt. So, I mean, you're only 18. I say only, but you've got a lot of titles with Bravado, and probably a lot more coming. I mean, you're definitely primed to be a force on the local and the international scene for a long time to come. So, I think a lot of people look at you with a great deal of interest. I recall about a year ago, I think it was for WSG qualifiers, the guy who owns HLTV was actually tweeting saying, like, look at the Sonic guy, look at his stats, look how good he is, kind of thing. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that. His name is a bit hard to pronounce. But
Petar
yeah,
Milanjovic,
something like that.
something like
Close
that.
enough.
I can't say those surnames, all the C's and the V's and the J's, man. But I mean, people on the international scene have actually looked at you and said, hey, this guy is good. And locally, it's kind of it's hard to find a game in if you look at stats for Bravado where you haven't performed. I mean, it's very rare that you're not on the top of the table there.
Yeah, yeah. Do you get your off days?
It does
Gotta
happen.
count
We'll
them in.
we'll get there as well during this conversation. But
I know. Flashbacks.
oh, the PTSD. Yeah.
Yeah, it's climbing up on me.
So I mean, let's start with the basic generic question. How did you get into gaming?
I think as most people did, I got into it through my parents. My father, in fact, one day was playing Doom 2 on the PC. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was sort of intrigued by it, and I asked him if I could play. And so there I am as a 6-year-old, 5-year-old playing Doom 2 with the screaming mother in the background, you know. That's where it started, and I gradually just grew, playing on consoles for a bit, and then eventually found my way to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I actually had you on my friends list for the longest time because you briefly played Team Fortress 2 and that was my
Yeah.
jam. So I don't know
I
how it
love
happened, but
TF2.
yeah, I love
Uh,
that game as well. But I mean,
yeah.
you must have been, geez, when I added you on my friends list back then, you must have been like 13 or something.
Yeah,
Jeez,
I was young, I think 14, 13.
jeez. So I mean, you gaming's been a large chunk of your life then,
Yeah,
considering how
100%.
young you started. Um, moving into CS, was it your intention to become like a competitive player, or did it just sort of happen naturally?
Um, you know, Through my high school career and pre-high school prep career, I usually played squash, and I played squash provincially
Oh, okay.
as well as cricket. I was trying to, didn't quite make it there. So I've always been a sort of competitive person at nature, and that I think translated a bit into my gaming, and even during pugs and etc. I'd always want to be the best, I'd always want to top frag. And eventually I just kind of got to a point where I decided, what's my next step? I want to compete, I want to be in a team, and I want to win prizes, etc., titles, um, or just for the hell of it. So I'd say it was a bit by chance and slash nature, I guess, but wasn't my intentions to be where I am today at that young age.
Yeah, I think if you're a competitive sort of person, it becomes a natural progression, really. It's
Yeah.
very hard to stay away from it. I mean, like, I even struggle if I play, like, free-for-all or something. If, like,
Yeah.
somebody's beating me, I just have to play until either they leave the server or I win,
Play a hard
basically.
out.
It's terrible. I'm like that
Yeah.
as well. But,
It's a bit bad, but
yeah.
and losing sucks even more.
Oh, yeah.
End
It,
of the
it
day.
really does. But for you, thankfully, being in Bravado, losing is a not a frequent event, shall we say.
I guess, but when it does happen, it's quite hard sore. Feel
Mm,
it in the heart.
I can imagine, man. So what was your first like proper team in CS:GO?
Um, what do you mean by proper? Like a professional levels kind of standard team, or
Well,
just where it's like, okay, I can do this as my sort of day-to-day living kind of.
no, let's start where when did you first play in Telkom GGL? Because I mean that's where everybody starts, right?
2014. It was a funny story. I was originally playing with RR,
Mm?
and Rage was it was leading up to Rage, and R didn't make it into the DGL kind of leg. And so I kind of asked myself, like, I do want to compete and whatever. And it's like 2 weeks before Rage. It's the last chance for a transfer leg. And I approached VNR, funny enough, Federation Esports, which was my first competitive team, I'd say. Um, and then they let me know that I could be part of their squad, for Rage. And that was quite a controversial time, as
Yeah.
many will know. Some might not. um, so yeah, it all started there at VNR, and
So
then
let's
yeah,
actually go into the controversy thing, and then we'll go back to some of the teams you've been in.
mm.
So, I mean, there must have been pressure on you going into that particular land because there were people online saying, "No, this kid's bullshit. He hacked," that sort of thing. I mean, it happens amazingly to most young players. I mean, JT was accused of the same thing. Fady was accused of the same thing before. It's like seems to be the young player rite of passage. The older players say, "This guy's, bullshit," and then you go to land and you prove them wrong or you don't.
Yeah, 100%. Look, there was a lot of controversy surrounding me. I think I had the most controversy, a lot of attention around me, Facebook posts, Twitter, whatever it be. Um, so I mean, there was a lot of pressure, I guess, building up to my sort of land debut, where I'd have to go and prove myself. But I kind of changed my mentality at that point, which was hard to do as a 16-year-old
Yeah.
individual. It's a kid and he's being bashed and getting all these negative comments and threats and whatever not. And I just kind of looked at it and I sort of said to myself, I know I'm not cheating, so I have got nothing really to prove, and there's no real pressure on me for that. So I'm just gonna go and play my own game, you know,
Mm.
be in my own mind. And so I guess it worked out in the end.
That's a lot of mental strength for somebody that's 16. Though. I mean, I like how you acknowledge, 2 years ago you were a different person, having not had all these experiences you've had as a pro player now.
Mm,
You
yeah.
you like you had a crowd of people standing behind you, didn't you? Checking out what
Yeah,
you're doing.
it was a bit intense, but intimidating for a child. But it was kind of cool as well because I had a lot of people come up to me and apologize, like personally, etc.
Well,
So
that's
it
got to
was
feel
cool.
good.
Yeah.
Geez. So
uh,
I mean, from
that's
from
gone.
from Vienna, where did you go next?
From Veneration, I left the team shortly after we got demolished by DC after that rage, which was kind of the unexpected because previously we had beat them online. That's where a lot of people lost skins and money. Sorry to all those people. Uh, excuse me. So when Rage came and gone, I left Vienna and I went and joined Nav Gaming with Don, Custom, Zio, a whole bunch of other near fun. In fact, came onto the ball. Um, and that was a short-lived. We beat DC as well, and we were close games with Energy, which were around second place back then. Um, that was a short-lived kind of stay, and then I eventually moved on from there and joined DC for a slightly short time. I was trialing with them, so I didn't join them, but it was my intention to maybe play with them for a bit.
You're not old
And
enough.
yeah, exactly, can't join the retirement squad. Don't tell them I said that. They'll watch this probably, but
Probably. Rick.
yeah. So then I went and got approached by Energy Esports actually, and they were building a new team, and I looked at the lineup, and they were kind of I was seen as the young individual, kind of coming into the team. Um, so I got a big talking down to. Uh, they didn't believe I was hacking or cheating or whatever. Ashton's motivational kind of speeches, he laid that on me. He said, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You can be here to prove yourself, etc. So I stayed in energy for quite a long period of time. I think just over a year.
So, I mean, going into energy, there was still lingering doubt that you might not be legit.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
unbelievable.
yeah, it was long lived that period of time.
Jeez. Well, I guess the same thing has followed, like a Flexi, for instance. People still said things
Mm,
about him, after he debuted at Rage as well.
yeah.
It's kind of crazy how it sticks with guys. Of course, there are those people who really were hacking, like Zonk, for instance.
Mm,
But
yeah.
it
You know,
seems, yeah, you first.
uh, I really believe that as like a scene or a community, we should be kind of applying the same rule of law that the courts kind of apply, where it's as if you're innocent before proven guilty. That's the way I
Absolutely.
like to kind of look at it. If you why shut down a young individual player just because you think he may be cheating or something, I'd rather
Mm.
give him his space and his time. And if you were wrong about him, then you've probably produced a really great player, instead of shutting him down early, reducing his opportunities, you know.
Yeah. Do you think there are players that sort of fall through the cracks that are pretty good because of this sort of approach from the sort of elite of? So, I mean, because there is like an older player sort of
Yeah.
group that sort of passes judgments on people. Like, is it something that you think limits a few guys?
We can't know for sure because no one could predict what else could have happened if we didn't do this, didn't do that, etc. But I think personally that it may have an impact. I mean, it does um, definitely affect a player's performance. At a point, it affected my performance. So I know what it feels like. I think I could say that I'm one of the people that knows most what it feels like
Yeah, you
to be
do.
kind of be bashed like that and put down, etc. So and if the player doesn't have a strong mentality and doesn't know how to cope with that or deal with that, then I think it will affect their game and will affect their future endeavors and whatnot. So promote positivity and give players the benefit of the doubt.
I absolutely agree, man. Like I think in South African esports, it's almost like that whole guilty until proven innocent thing carries through to whether a player is legit, whether it's a fight that's going on Twitter about is this dude an asshole? Isn't he an asshole? Is
Yeah.
like it just seems to always be this mob mentality as opposed to positivity,
Get the
which
pitchforks,
yeah, exactly. Take out the
the
pitchforks and
keyboards.
yeah, go and bash somebody over the head with your mechanical. I
Uh,
mean, it's crazy, but I think with it growing, we will hopefully start to outgrow that. But even if you look at the international scene, you look at a guy like Rops, for instance. He
mm,
had that whole thing where he had to go and play at the Faceit Studios to
yeah.
prove that he's legit because
There
everybody
was a
was.
lot of pressure on him as a player. I mean, I remember like tweets and stuff coming out from him. It was,
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult thing, but as you said, you've gone through it and you came out stronger. But there are those individuals who probably just go like, "Oh no, screw this. I'll do something else with my time
yeah,
than
yeah.
than go this way." But let's hope that the next Sonic doesn't get scared away by this.
Hopefully not. Should come to me. Give him
Yeah.
some motivation.
So I mean, after Energy, it was BVD, right?
Yeah. I joined BVD at the end of 2015, December, November, around that time. So I've been part of BVD for well over almost 3 years, actually.
Jeez,
So it's been a long time.
madness.
Yeah.
So are,
Finally found my home.
are you sticking it out there forever? BVD for life, blood is blue, all of that.
I haven't got my tattoo on my wrist yet, but we'll see. We'll see. Anything can change.
I tend to laugh at Anthrax quite a bit for his BVD tattoo because he got that while he was a player, but now that he's a caster, it's like every time we're doing a BVD
It's a
game, I'm like,
bias. I gotta
I'm
keep
like,
that off
calm
camera.
down, Barry, calm down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
piping up.
but yeah, I mean, it's interesting with BVD just how much of a almost a cult following BVD has in South Africa and also amongst the players. It's like once you're a BVD player, you kind
Groesbeek.
of have
Yeah,
that to check off on your CV.
yeah. Funny enough, we went to we actually go to a sports psychologist
Oh,
occasionally
wow.
for our team. Yeah, we did in our old lineup. We are planning to do it with our new lineup, which is a very useful endeavor. I think every sports team is looking to sort of improve their team skills, people skills, etc. And it's very
Mental
beneficial.
fortitude and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I should go to one of these sessions. What was I gonna say?
About the blood running blue with BVD.
Oh yes. And in one of those sessions, we kind of, your team is actually your family at the end of the day. And that's what you have to see it as, your group of friends, mates, part of a group with the same goals and dreams, ambitions. So we kind of created our new word. It's called teamily. And that's why we kind of refer to it as bravado, team in a family,
That's cool.
So that's where the whole tattoo and everything kind of comes in. Part of the teamily when you get it.
That's very cool. I like that. So when's the tattoo coming?
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe in some close time. There are some big news that are waiting to be announced. We can't give
Instagram
too much.
post.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm guessing your mom won't be happy though.
Probably not. Probably not. But I won't show her until she finds it.
Oh,
Sees it in
geez.
the picture.
Sees it on Twitter. I don't know, but oh, you got to be
Hope he
careful with
doesn't
that
watch
stuff
this.
now.
Yeah.
I don't think any parent likes their kid going that route, except if they're inked themselves, and I guess they maybe have less of
Yeah.
a thing with
Yeah.
it. But hey, let's go into 2016 because I mean that's really the big year with Bravado. You joined them and made an impact on the team overall. Like the first event for 2016 was Vodacom Gamer Fest, which you guys actually lost to Carbon, but that was really the only time you lost to Carbon that year.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that was a bit of a that was a when we were a newish lineup. I think we were 2 months, 3 months together. So I mean, our synergy wasn't quite there, and Carbon were playing a strong game at the time. They were playing a new kind of puggy but fast-paced but controlled style. So the aggression was kind of overwhelming, and we weren't really prepared to deal with that in our groups and pairs, etc. We didn't really know how to handle it and play around it. So we kind of slipped through the cracks a bit and gave them a win.
Well, they got that
They
win,
took
and
it.
it must have made them feel good for the rest of the year. But
Yeah,
throughout the
gave them
rest
some
of the year, I
confidence.
mean, it didn't happen for them. You guys pretty comprehensively crushed them every other time you faced each other.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
went back to the drawing boards.
I guess it kind of shows that sort of puggy approach with a lot of skill behind it. It can catch you off at times as a more structured team, especially if you're in sort of the early stages of your development.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was ESWC qualifiers at the CTICC in Cape Town. You guys took them down then. Eve Tech Champions League, I think the only game where anybody even gave you a hard time was XTC on train. Other than that, you pretty much crushed everybody there.
Yeah, that was a fun tournament. It was really cool because that was the first time that the kind of esports lounge opened up and was sort of done properly. It was a nice event, and XCC played a hard game, which we were quite surprised by, and they still talk about it today.
Well, they're one small victory ever, right?
Yeah.
Again. So I mean, ECL was interesting because it was actually also my first time casting at a live event. I'd been,
Oh yes, that's true. That's true. I
people forget
remember
this, but I've only been around in this for like a year and a half. So
that.
I guess
Really?
yeah,
Okay. I'm
absolutely.
even surprised by that.
I just did so much casting, dude. I think in
Hmm.
2016 I probably did like 120 plus games,
Yeah.
which is
Wow.
a lot. So I think I probably
Oh.
casted more than anyone else in the last sort of year and a half. But the problem is I was behind everybody, so I had to catch up.
Ah, yeah.
Um, I guess for you coming into the scene as a player, also you work your way through lower teams, get to the top team, and you've got to put in like a ton of work to actually um, match the level of your teammates. And I don't mean in terms of your fragging skill. It's about the mental confidence, the
Hmm.
fortitude when you're in those difficult situations in a tournament.
Yeah. It's very difficult for Counter-Strike as an esport to bring in these young players and sort of give them the certainty that they can build themselves up and get into a strong top team. It's not like football or cricket where we have these leagues, school leagues, and then goes into varsity leagues, etc. Then you can be picked up. We don't have that. You're kind of playing hardball here. You're trying to be the best and outshine everyone around you, and hopefully you get picked up. There's no sort of process in which you can follow. Just kind of banking on it, and I think that's what we actually need to develop in South Africa is a sort of grassroots system
Hmm.
where we can um, bring these individuals through these young individuals and through a process of which we kind of guarantee an outcome almost.
Yeah,
Strong players, etc.
that's a really good thought, actually.
Yeah.
Because it is very difficult. Like, I recall, to the very brief period that I played, I mean, I gave it a year. And I mean, when you start out as a lower level player, you play Bravado in MWeb Masters, you get stomped, and it's like
Yeah.
a lot of
It's hard
guys
to
will.
learn from that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of guys will take that as a disheartening experience. You have to be very focused on improving to be able to take a beat down and get up from it. It's
Yeah.
I understand like the telecom ethos of starting in open division, working into second and first, and all of that, and it makes sense as a progression throughout the year for getting better. But as you say, like, how do you even get into a team to be in open div that's actually going to be good? Because you see these guys like post on the CS:GO Facebook group looking for a team MG2, and I'm like, oh my word, if you're MG2, you probably shouldn't be. But you know, you got to start somewhere, and it's
Yeah.
it's very hard to tell. Like, will this person amount to anything? Will they get anywhere? Will they be stuck with bad players in a team? Will they improve together? It's almost seems like luck at this stage,
Yeah,
aside from what you do as a player, your own effort that you put in.
exactly. It's not really an environment that promotes growth or sustainable growth. It's kind of everyone in a free for all mosh pit trying their best to try and get out of it, crawl out of it, and that's funny enough, me and Demi are that's Detrini, my teammate,
Hmm.
focusing on sort of building a cool system in Bravado where we will be trying to get these young players through the scene, etc., and build on their skills, their opportunities.
That's exciting.
Yeah, won't say too much on that right now, but that was a little hint.
Well, I did actually have a chat with Demi yesterday, very briefly, and
Hmm.
I'm going to be doing a video with him in a couple of weeks' time as well. So maybe I can extract more information out of him now
Oh,
that
we'll
you've
see.
you've let the cat out the bag there a little bit. We'll see, but I think
Demi's a bit
that's.
of a harder punching bag, but
Oh, he's been there
maybe
and
get it
he's
out of
done
him.
that. Like everything that could be done, he's just about done. From being a
Yeah.
pro Quake player to Counter Strike, I mean, he's been everywhere.
Mm.
But I think that's a really good observation, and it's something that's been on my mind a lot about how how do you promote sustainable growth. I like the fact that you use that word because it almost seems like South African teams are this sort of flash in the pan thing where we go overseas like once in a while, we either do well or we don't, and then it's a very long period until we do
Yeah.
again. And in that 6 months between those trips, a lot can change in Counter
Yeah.
Strike. I mean, esports in general, 6 months is way longer than it is in a traditional sport because things change so quickly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even in America, you get scholarships for gaming. You can get residency for gaming. I know that's the case for um, League of Legends. And as well in high schools in Norway and Sweden, I'm
Denmark too,
sure,
yeah.
yeah, esports is quite it's a huge sport. I mean, a majority of the kids do esports instead of the ordinary sports. I don't know what much you can do in Sweden. I don't know what they play, but
Probably
but they
soccer.
have coaches, etc. Which we're far behind in South Africa, and I think we need to build a system to, as you said, promote growth and a sustainable growth.
Yeah, let's hope also with internet connectivity becoming a little bit more of a thing that
Mm.
the underprivileged communities can start to get into. Like there's Akasi
Yeah,
Esports and Soweto doing their thing. Like there
yeah,
needs to be a lot more of that because also let's face it, South Africa isn't the richest country, so there's a lot of people who could be amazing and never even get access to it.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Hidden talents.
Exactly. So I mean, going back to 2016, we were at ECL. Then there was Masters after that, which I mean, you in between there, there was WSG qualifiers and that happening too, but the Masters thing, I mean, that must have felt like a culmination of the hard work of the year, winning all of those smaller titles and then sort of culminating in the big victory there.
Yeah, I think as a player, or just even as an individual person, I mean, you have to give yourself credit for even your smallest victories. Um, and all those small tournaments did was build our motivation and helped us sort of iron out our mistakes, just to prep ourselves for the international tournaments, which we were really sort of confident going into and wanting to prove ourselves and make a name.
Yeah. And yourself personally, that first year with Bravado, did you feel you'd hit your potential yet, or were you still sort of building towards it? I mean, I'm talking internal narrative, how you felt about
What
like
do you?
like did you feel you were as good then as you are now, or were you still like trying to
Okay.
find your feet, or
With my first year in Bravado, it was an exciting time. I felt like I was playing really well. I was, um, because I was also when I was still sort of playing squash and whatever, so I was ridiculously fit. So fitness also translates a lot into your gameplay, and I do keep fit today, but not on that level. But I mean, at that point, I would say I was a much more explosive player. I could make a lot more flashy plays and whatnot, but I was really reckless as a result of that. And from that, I sort of now, up until now, I've grown into a more matured player, sort of more controlled, and I evaluate a lot more in the game. And I have a lot more experience now than I did then in terms of game knowledge. Being in a team is a big part of it. It's very difficult for um, to play in a team like on that sort of high level and keep your how do you say it, sort of good vibes and your
mm.
the right mindset, etc. You could fall behind. Um, so yeah, I'd say now I'm a better player overall, but back then I'd say I was better at other things. Um,
That's an
yeah.
interesting one because from my side, I recall you as being exactly the word you used, the more explosive, aggressive sort of player where you're trying to take contact. Whereas the way I kind of see you now is you are a far more passive player in your approach on the server, but you take the right kind of fights as opposed to just sort of plowing into the enemy. And I think that's also why you're generally as consistent as you are, because it's very rare that you find a player like a Fur, for instance, who's like massively aggressive and does all these crazy things and gets away with it as much as he does. Whereas
Mm,
the players who are more consistent, the devices, the cold zeros, they are a bit more considered in their approach.
yeah. Um, I think that's just the approach you take mentally toward the game, just the way you think about the game, etc. I mean, everyone has their different perspectives, everyone has their different views on how to play Counter-Strike for themselves as a player. And yeah, I just learned like through my time and whatever that the controlled, more playing the odds really in Counter
Mm.
Strike is the sort of better way to do it. You want the best possible chance for everything you do, and minimize mistakes, etc. And how do you minimize mistakes? You play safe, you analyze your situations, and you give yourself time. Most importantly, and if you're that aggressive player, you're not really giving yourself time to think about your situations and sort of calculate your next move. And that opens yourself up to a lot of exposure and mistakes, and that can be exploited by your opponents. So
Yeah.
I'd say I progressed and matured as a player into a better state. But I mean, each their own.
Yeah, well, I guess also the interesting thing there is between being a sort of controlled and considered sort of play style versus the aggressive play style. You almost would find the majority of the time the highly aggressive player is an early round player. He's the guy who's taking the
Yeah.
early engagements. Whereas, I mean, you tend to, from what I see, be a more mid round player where you're actually having an impact on the game and also involved in clutching it out as well. Whereas, I mean, if you're an entry frag, I mean, that's the role I used to play.
Mm.
You
It's a
are
job almost.
generally going to die early in the round. So it's going to happen more times than it won't happen, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it limits your impact on the game. Although it's an important job.
Yeah. You can still be a very aggressive player, but you need to be able to control your aggression, and you still need that sort of edge on game sense, etc. But I mean, you don't need it as much as a lurker or a late round player. He needs to be able to assess the situation of the game and needs to make the right call and what to do next, the best possible call. As a sort of entry and aggressive player, you do what you're told almost, by your
Yes,
IGL
sir.
or
In I go.
but everyone needs to be good at what they do. So I mean, be the best possible entry you need to be. But who's really a player I see who's really good at controlling their aggression is automatic. I
Hmm.
think he's possibly one of the best entries at this point in time. Does really well.
And the interesting thing about him is he also has big late round impact as well because he tends to be one of the few that will live through the early round
Yeah,
encounters
yeah.
and
I
have
think
an
he just
impact on the
runs in
game.
and bashes everyone and then kind of survives.
Yeah, well, that Cloud9 team is an interesting one. Are you a Cloud9 fan overall?
I am, especially of Stewie because I find his story quite interesting. So
Yeah, well, for every stew, there's probably like 150 people who fail horribly and end up
yeah,
not getting anywhere. But his story is fascinating, I must say. It's just single-minded dedication to the game and to succeeding.
yeah.
I mean, from your side, you're completing your studies and everything, or are you kind of
Um,
devoting CS your life to CS? Yeah.
I took a gap year this year just to kind of find myself, experience a bunch of things, sort of really mature as a person, but then also dedicated it to being a player, for CS. And
Mm.
as of next year, I'm gonna start part-time studying and some plans in the bag, but that'll all be announced in due time.
Yeah, I keep hearing whispers of these plans. I'm assuming some kind of overseas
uh,
jaunt is gonna come in there, but
no, not at all.
oh, okay. So, I mean, if we go back to a little bit in time again, I mean, there was Masters where you guys won the big 500,000 rand thing, and going into this year, you guys towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year had a fair bit of exposure on the international scene. There was WSG in Dubai, and then of course the ESWC tournament, the Mountain Dew LAN with the ESEA as well. So you guys got around quite a bit. I think the first of those was WSG, if I'm not mistaken.
um,
Oh,
ESWC was first.
oh yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
in
that
October.
that's where you
Yeah,
guys had that game against LDLC where you guys were
yeah.
up, and then on Dust 2
The
they.
historic game of throw.
Yeah,
That's what I refer to it as.
it wasn't pretty. I mean, as a South African fan, like I think everybody was there. Like, come on, BVD, come on, and it looked like you
Yeah.
guys had it. It just didn't work. I mean, what went wrong there?
Counter-Strike at the end of the day is 50-50 is a mental game and then whatever individual team game. So the mental game played a big role in us there. We're not as experienced as LDLC are in
Mm.
terms of being on the stage in front of a huge crowd and having that experienced IGL as existence. He's been to a major.
Legend, yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I mean, we were 8-1 up on Dust 2. I'll never forget it. And that's when the downhill kind of started. We were losing rounds, etc. And we weren't, um, mentally, we weren't a strong team at that point. And we learned a lot from that. Existence, I think, turned that game around for them 100%. Started exploiting us, and we just didn't know how to deal with it. And once we were on the back foot, it felt like we were in the slump that was way too hard to overcome and sort of bring back the game.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, even that one crucial clutch round where I think I fragged two of them and I didn't have a defuse kit, or I did have the defuse kit, but I was like half a second late. And that was a really important round. I think, what was the final score? I think it was like 13-11 or something like that. And yeah, lost that round. And then we were on eco. If we had won that round, I think they would have been on eco, actually. On a low buy. So, I mean, a lot of things could have changed. But, and then we just kind of got stomped on the next two maps. Well, not stomped, but I mean,
Mm.
not
There
close.
was a turning point, if I recall correctly, on Cash where you guys had just won a round and they were kind of potentially in like a low eco situation. You could see the call was to sort of buy SMGs and stuff, and they in French fashion forced up with Tech Nines and CZs, and kind of
Mm,
from there it spiraled. It
yeah.
just yeah, that was like the point in the game where I was like, oh no, this is just this.
uh, it would have been nice to win that game, but same. We had the experience of it, and it was really cool because we were good friends with Existence and the sort of LDLC squad. We chatted to them at the hotel, etc. And we always, whenever we see each other in a tournament or going to see each other, we'd always like tweet and etc.
That's cool.
Existence is actually a really cool guy, and he said something really funny while we were chilling in the hot tub. Yeah, funny enough. Um,
Jeez.
he was like giving us tips and tricks, etc., on how to beat the other team that we were playing. I can't remember who it was. It was another good European sort of team.
I
But
don't remember.
and he was saying, "Oh, he better keep his mouth shut, or he'll beat us like Virtus Pro." Because this is when Virtus Pro was still kind of coming onto the scene, and Existence went and sort of spoke to them for quite a while and whatever, gave them tips and tricks. And then the following month, they were beating them. So he said he'd better keep his mouth shut before we start beating them.
Yeah,
So
I think at that point it was very small degrees of separation between yourselves and LDLC because it really wasn't like dominance from them. It didn't feel until
yeah, yeah, and that was really good for us. I mean, that was I think the first point. Um, at which we could say us as South Africans can actually compete, on the international level. We want to be there. We can play against these players, even though we're stuck here at home and we're not able to scrim them or practice against them. We can go there and we can still make a name for ourselves and be part of it all.
yeah, it's an exciting thought. We need more of that exposure because we're geographically isolated. There's very little we can do to play these guys without actually going over there. They ain't
Yeah.
gonna come here very easily, are they?
No, no chance unless you got a bag full of money and a
Yeah,
nice tournament.
this is true. Oh, let's see. Maybe some of the local tournament guys will actually organize something there. But I mean, LDLC, of course, this year they've gone on to win ESWC.
Yeah,
XMS, who was in the team at the time, went to Envious as well. So, I mean, they've obviously
and
improved and,
yeah,
and kicked on from there. Um,
yeah.
WSG Dubai
And
was
recently they
yeah, sorry.
actually beat another top team, LDLC. I think they beat Navi, in fact. Not
Well,
like recent, but
yeah.
like, yeah, okay, well, Navi's not, but I mean,
Well, let's see. Maybe they're
as
better.
LDLC, it's,
We saw Electronic is now in the
yeah,
team, so
signed on.
maybe they'll be better. But they lost to Vegas Squadron for goodness sake
Hmm,
in what was it, Epicenter qualifier. So Vegas Squadron ends up
yeah.
playing FaZe in the
And it's
qualifier
funny
game.
because, on paper, those five individuals should not be losing to, teams like that, etc. And you kind of ask yourself why, and the only answer to it is the mental game, you know.
Mm, no
And
confidence.
I have no doubt that Navi's busy sitting at a sports psychologist session, life coach session right now, sorting out all their team issues.
Yeah, there must be a few because I mean that really was quite a spiral from being one of the top teams in the world a year ago. So
Yeah.
let's see if they can come back. I mean, chronologically after ESWC, I think it was WESG Dubai, and then Shanghai was in the beginning of this year, right?
Um, WSG qualifier was in Dubai first, and then we went to where did we go first? We went to America first for MDL, and then we went to China after that.
Yes, I recall you guys flew straight from LA to
Yeah,
China.
it was a horrible flight.
Yeah, even going to
So,
LA is like it's a horrible like feeling
yeah,
that eight
it's a
hours
very
difference
long
makes.
flight.
Jeez.
Flying against time, I think, as well. Correct?
Yeah.
With time, I
I
think.
mean, in if we rewind it to the Dubai qualifier, you guys played Space Soldiers in the final there, and they like actually destroyed you guys.
Mm.
That must have been a little bit of a mental blow to suffer that sort of beating in a final.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, throughout the tournament, we were playing well. We beat that chosen five team, which actually three of their players were part of the Limitless team that
Hmm.
competed at
Remind
this
was there, I
year's.
think.
Yeah, yeah. And so we were quite confident going throughout the tournament. We were beating all these other African teams convincingly, like we were destroying them. And now, come the day of the finals, we're sort of lost and don't know what to do. Um, which was a sort of big blow to us, but it showed us that mentally there isn't something right, and mentally we need to be able to bring ourselves out of this ditch and sort of reset and come back.
Hmm.
So we took away from it and we learned, and then when we met them again in China later in December, we actually put up convincing scores against them. And now Space Soldiers have qualified for a major, I'm pretty sure.
Major
Uh,
qualifier, yeah.
Major qualifier. So, yeah, I mean, can only live and learn.
Yeah.
I try not to get myself too down about my pasts, etc., and my failures, but I mean, always try to stay optimistic and, look
Hmm.
for the next step. Because what's the point in dwelling on your past?
I totally agree with you. You need to be able to pick yourself back up, learn from
Yeah,
the bad results, and translate it into a better performance the next time, which is exactly what you guys did. in that I think let's look at the ESEA thing because I mean we touched on WSG of course. I mean you guys narrowly missed out on qualifying because of the the game versus Signature. You didn't have enough round difference in terms of wins despite dominating them
Yeah.
to actually go through, which was a shame. But MDL, you guys had the Mountain Dew League. You guys had a really good performance against TSM. That must have felt really good.
Yeah, it was good, and I think at the time TSM was like a top 6 rated team or something in NA. Well, they were playing Premier, which is the highest I think in the SCA that you
At the
can play
time,
there. Pro
yes.
or
Now
pro, it's
it's
now pro.
Pro League and then
Yeah,
Premier. But
I think it goes Premier, MDL, then Pro League, if I'm not mistaken. Pro League being the highest.
yeah,
But yeah. So I mean, they were really a top-rated team, and it gave us a lot of confidence at the time. And we were beating like Twists was in that lineup.
yeah. Now he's in Team Liquid and he's wrecking
Yeah,
faces.
yeah, he's destroying people, which is quite cool to see. I mean, we just after we beat them, we were on the shuttle back to our hotel, and he was the only member sitting in the. Actually, no, it was on the way from the airport to the hotel from when we just arrived, and he was the only sort of Canadian kid sitting in there with the whole BVD squad. We were talking to him, and he's quite a cool, sort of calm, collected kid. But yeah. So throughout the tournament, we had that confidence boost from taking that win, which was really cool. But then in the other games, we didn't quite show up, and it was really disappointing, especially against Rogue, who was a
Mm.
team we really wanted to beat, and we knew we could beat them, on a sort of team player level, strategy, and even individual. Um, and we just slipped up on the mental game again there, brought
Yeah,
us down.
they went on to win the tournament, so it's not like it was
Yeah.
a huge shame
Yeah.
to lose. I mean,
That
it was a huge shame, but
every international tournament we've gone to, the
you lost to the
people
eventual winners.
we get knocked out by the finalists. But I
That's
mean, it is
crazy.
what it is.
That game on Mirage versus Rogue, where I think it was Victor on ramp and through connector was just like having a crazy CT half against you guys.
Mm, yeah,
I think
they
that
were.
must have put you guys a bit on the back foot.
Yeah, and it's hard to come back from that. I mean, because it's really intimidating as well as an individual and a team to be at this international kind of LAN, because I mean teams are throwing stuff at you that you've never seen before. They're throwing new strategies, different gameplay styles, and it's just an overall raising of the bar of skill because all those teams are better than the teams we have here in South Africa. So to sort of go there and then suddenly have to push yourself and raise your bar, it's difficult, especially when you're fighting that mental game and you're on the back foot and they're dominating you, out aiming you, whatever it be.
Yeah, I guess that's also where as a South African team going overseas, when you dominate on the local scene, you know you have a certain edge over your opponents most of the time. I mean, the majority of opponents you're going to be able to outskill them anyway, but a lot of these international teams, like all the skill that we have that we could ever bring to bear is less than some of the teams that they've played against, and it's like you look at DreamHack 2014 where Dimmy and Black Poison were playing with the squad at the time, and I mean they're playing Fnatic. They played, I'm pretty sure Olafmeister and Flusher have seen everything that could possibly be seen in Counter Strike up until that point. So there's nothing you're really going to do that's going to surprise them. It's going to be, as you say, winning based on your mental fortitude and your team play, or as opposed to like unless you really got something crazy and to like throw at them
Exactly.
in terms of strats. But I mean,
know.
you're going into the tournament learning how to deal with that sort of level of play and those kinds of teams. Whereas for them, they're not going into it learning that against you. They're going into it going, well, I
To
mean,
come and destroy you.
we're going to come and disrespect you.
Pretty much. I mean, like, especially against Fnatic, I mean, that's quite a name to go up against at DreamHack, especially at that point in time where they were considered the sort of dominant force alongside NIP. If I'm not mistaken, NIP were on their 86 game streak or something
It
crazy.
had just finished about 6 months before, but
Somewhere.
it was them and
And
Envious
so,
that were
yeah,
probably
and
the best.
Fnatic, I mean, Fnatic were gods on the scene, the star lineup. And I mean, for them coming and playing against a no-name South African team, I mean, it's not really a challenge mentally for them versus Bravado coming in, you were playing the best team in the world. We're here to prove ourselves. It's a lot more pressure on you as an
Hmm.
individual and as a team.
They're
So,
playing pressure free, whereas you're playing with a ton
yeah,
of pressure.
I mean, to play against a Fnatic player who's on 100% confidence, JW Olofmeister, it's not something that you can just roll over.
No, I mean, you really have to be prepared for that. And I mean, of course, they were as prepared as they could be, but there is a gulf still between
That
playing.
was that was as well. I think that was the first time we've sent a team overseas. So I mean, they knew nothing. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't have the experience. They didn't know if they were training properly, and they didn't even know if they were playing Counter Strike properly. And on their return, we learned that they weren't playing Counter Strike properly, and that we needed to build a strong team of five individual players, the five best individual players, arguably. Um, and then we needed to practice the right way and practice the EU way, so we kind of call it. And so that's what we've been doing. And then obviously over the years, I'd say we've improved. We've gone and we've put up some good results against some overseas teams, um, particularly Space Soldiers and Kingwin
Hmm.
um, at WSG. So we do in the future now. We are looking to succeed, um, which everyone will find that out in some short time.
Oh, still with the hints. Eh? Look at this guy.
Yeah, got to drop them.
Got to drop the hints. Yeah. Well, I think you guys aren't that far off. Like I think where people, the way people think about the game, and I mean average fans, they tend to think, okay, well,
Yeah,
a tier one team is 50% better than we are, but it's really tiny degrees of separation because I
it's
mean aim is very relative in comparison. It's just those small degrees of team play and strategy.
it's also the fact that we're so isolated here in South Africa, and we can't scrim these teams on the daily, and we can't, you know, play against that kind of level of Counter Strike all the time versus that they can. So you become you don't know what you're expecting really when you go there. So the only way I see it is if we get a team there and we are in that scene and we are able to consistently practice against these teams and develop ourselves as a team and our play styles, etc.
Yeah, kind of like SK did back when they were Kaboom and
SK, Luminosity, Renegades.
Renegades, all those guys. Yeah, I mean that's proven to be a formula that works. I mean, Renegades finally won a big international tournament against
About time.
VP. Yeah,
Shame JKS.
he's
I
so
feel for
good
him.
though. Hey, wow.
Yeah, I feel for the kid. Always looks a bit pissed off, but I
He
mean,
does. Eh? He never smiles. It's crazy.
uh, uh,
Interestingly, I think his playstyle is actually quite similar to yours in a
hmm,
lot of ways. I
hmm,
don't know if you'd agree.
been told that
Oh, you
a couple
have.
of
Okay,
times.
cool. So I'm not completely wrong for a change. But I mean,
Uh,
he's amazing. Nifty is like
yeah,
made a huge
Nifty's
difference
really
to that
great.
team. Yeah.
Played really, really well in that tournament. He had a great game.
What do you think about his firing speed? I mean, his firing speed is just like
His
insane.
reaction,
Jeez, dude! Like how
yeah,
quickly he gets the shots off. It's just
yeah.
it,
Um, and the difference in esports now, which we need to kind of integrate into South Africa, is the method we use to train as individuals and even as teams. Um, take Conor McGregor for instance, or um, who is he? Muhammad Ali. He in fact said, you can't really a dog doesn't learn new tricks if he's always doing the same tricks, etc. You have
true.
to sort of teach yourself new things and practice in new ways to become better. If you do
Hmm.
the same thing over and over again, you're eventually going to come to a plateau in your skill level, and you won't be able to progress. So what these teams, etc., are doing overseas, they're integrating new practice programs. Um, which I even use now, is called iGym, and it
Hmm.
basically focuses on certain fields, whether it be reaction, peripheral vision, um, a bunch of things, speed, cognitive thinking.
Hmm.
I'll send you the program. You can take a look at it. It's
That's
pretty
interesting.
interesting,
So it's
because
trying to
anything to give you the edge, basically.
yes,
That's what
yes.
all these teams are looking at right now. I mean, they're going, sports coaches, psychologists, nutritionists, the gymming. I mean, exercise is a big part. So, you know, anything to give you the edge
That makes
at the end
sense. I
of the
mean,
day.
if you look at conventional sports, like I mean, a Formula One or something like that, for the last 20 years they've been doing like reaction based tests with the guys, hitting things on a wall
Yeah,
as they light up, and weird things like that to just
yeah,
increase your action time, your cognitive
yeah. Because
abilities.
if you just train in a certain way in CS, whatever you shoot your bots or you do the aim reaction training map, you only really are improving those skills, and you're leaving these other small skills that you may not be aware of. You're leaving them out, and you're just relying on these sort of three skills that you have strong.
Yeah,
And that's not going to help you much where if you're playing against an opponent who now has six skills strong, you know? So, yeah, I try and find the best ways and new ways to sort of improve myself as a player, and I think everyone should, you know?
totally agree. It is an interesting one because there's a lot of players who you can see in the way they play. They're good at certain things, but not so good at other things. Like to become a complete player, you do need to build overall, skills. Work on the areas that you're not so good. Because and if you're only a very good Twitch aimer, you shoot very quickly. You jerk the mouse all over the place. It'll hurt your spray control. It'll hurt
Oh,
your ability to hold an angle.
yeah.
Silly things like that. I'm just trying to think of practical examples here, but
Yeah,
I mean that also I think differentiates the very top echelon of players from the guys a little bit below, where you're actually focusing on these more obscure sorts of things as opposed
yeah,
to just playing aimbot.
yeah.
So you said peripheral vision. Do you play 4-3 or 16-9?
4-3, stretched.
You don't have any peripheral vision then.
I know, but I mean, it's not really peripheral vision, it's peripheral awareness, really. Your
Yeah.
ability to sort of um, see objects, images, whatever it be, in your sort of corner vision and be able to process that quicker and to make a decision quicker, whether it be you want to flick him, kill him, or okay, that's actually a teammate, can focus here, stuff like that. It's small things that people don't really think about,
Mm.
that really does. And if you improve these small skills, that it really does give you the edge over other players.
Yeah, totally agree, man. I think that's probably useful for some of the players watching, younger guys or guys a tier or two below you who are looking to improve. I think those are some great tips. I don't even have to ask you the age old shall we say generic question of what can young players do to improve. I think we've covered that just fine. So let's move into this year. It's Metal State Show Match was the one time this year where in the first half of the year where you guys were bested, and I mean it was an online game, so one does
Mm.
need to take that into account. But what went wrong there? Was it just the amount of skill that and the puggy style again that the X Carbon guys were bringing?
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing because we were winning. I think we were playing other leagues at the time, and we were beating Energy like convincingly. And when it comes to show, when the big game comes on, then we kind of sort of went back and crawled into our shell, and Energy kind of ran over us. So again, the mental game does play a big part. But I mean, we took away from that, and we made sure that we would iron out our mistakes, and we would be ready for the one that counted, the middle state finals.
Yeah, which you guys took in absolutely convincing fashion. Though you weren't really challenged throughout that tournament, which I mean, it sounds crazy to sort of trivialize a tournament down to those sorts of details, but you guys were just like dominant. It really
Yeah,
wasn't any contest.
yeah, we were really confident going into the tournament as well. We felt like we did the proper prep, and we were ready to, or we were there to take the win.
Hmm.
So
And it
I even
showed.
fell off stage in the finals
Oh, really? I
just
didn't
before the
notice.
finals started. Yeah, I rolled my chair off and I fell right off onto my arm.
Oh my word, dude.
uh, it
Well,
was cool.
you're still here. You're still alive.
Stuck it out. Yeah, still in my arm.
So, important question: did JT actually buy a Lamborghini with his money as he promised?
um, Funny enough, I have it here.
Oh, you do. Oh, this is so cool. Let's check this out.
It's a little bit broken up and shit now. But here's Johnny's Lamborghini.
No
Bought it with
way.
his prize money. Can't really see the logo, but I mean, there it
There we
is.
go. There we got a Lambo logo. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
He wants to buy another one. He wanted to buy another one after after the ESL Africa finals, but then yeah, we lost. So
Didn't go the right way there.
budget cuts. No.
So mentioning JT, I mean him and Fady came in replacing it was Black Poison and Goals at the time, who you guys had travelled overseas with. Those two guys coming into the team, do you feel that sort of unlocked the potential of the team a little bit with a little bit more of that youthful exuberance and crazy skill?
Yeah, we also sort of saw it as it's an investment. You're investing into young players who have all this time, you know, still to improve as players, and they're really at the level that they are. They're really good for their age, in terms of skill. Maybe not teamwork level yet because we're in the South African scene, but I mean, so yeah, we took them on board and we felt that it would make the team stronger in time. We didn't feel that we would be as strong as we were with our previous lineup at that point in time, but we knew we could probably build it to a greater and a much better, stronger level over a period of time, whether it have been 6 months, a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd also come off the back of Goals, particularly being fairly poor in the entry role, whereas I think Fady did make an immediate difference. I mean,
Yeah,
no disrespect to Goals, it's just the reality of the performances at the time, unfortunately, for whatever
yeah.
reason. But I mean, it looked to me like, especially on Cash, Fady had a big impact on your guys' game. Just his ability to get multi frags on side entries, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because as well when we brought the new players on, that does a lot to your team. I mean, it changes synergy, it changes the way you play, your style, and the way you make decisions and the way you feel like you are going to play against an opponent, whatever the case. Um, so with Fady coming in, being a really strong entry fragger, we knew we could sort of exploit these rushes and these bursts, etc., which changed our gameplay completely from our previous lineup. On our previous lineup, we were relying more on our mid game playmaking, etc. Because as you said, goals was poor in the field. That's the reality. So, so I mean, bringing the individuals on, they were strong, and they still are very strong, and they are growing. But yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, going into that whole year after the Medal State Championship, you moved over to Mega 8, which was an online tournament, but again, their domination throughout the tournament, including against Energy in the final yet again. From there, Energy did actually make the change of bringing in Black Poison. It was just before the start of season one of ESL Africa, which I mean, we're talking what, May? I thought qualifiers were in April. The actual
Yeah.
championship started in May. So there's actually, compared to previous years, quite a lot that happened in the first few months of the year. I mean, the Black Poison version of Energy, were they initially tougher to play against? I mean, on the server sort of thing, or were they still not really as much of a challenge for you guys as maybe they'd been when you lost to them earlier in the year?
Well, at the start, I mean, you have to give them time to build the team, etc. We knew that their team would be stronger with Robbie in it because Robbie is a phenomenal player. Um, but we did part ways with them. So at the time, we knew. I mean, we went in and we were dominating them at the start, etc. But we didn't think too much of it because we knew like we have to give him time. He's gonna still build a team, and he has. He's built the team to a phenomenal stage right now. I mean, he's changed them around completely, playing a completely different play style, playing an EU play style, and
Mm.
still a bit of kinks here and there. But I mean, we'll have our faults. So arguably, I'd still say we're the best team in the country, just purely
Oh, the
because
shed.
of results, on paper. Um, but I mean, anything can change. Just who wants it more at this point in time. But we'll see
Yeah,
in the next
I
games.
think you guys are fairly closely matched, and if you look at it throughout the year, it has been sort of an up and down where you guys have been up more. If we were looking at sort of a national ranking system, if there was such a thing, you guys probably would still be number one ranked. If it was down to purely finishes, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But I mean, if you look at that ESL Africa Season 1 final, there was a point, I think, on Overpass where it looked like they might actually bring it to 2-all and we'd go to a fifth map. And then famously, the bomb was left behind and things unraveled from there. It seemed like they tilted and you guys
Then
just took
I
advantage
got
of it.
shot him and then I hid in heaven.
Yeah, and you had no time to
uh,
plant or
uh,
you get the bomb or whatever. So, I mean, they
shame.
seemed to tilt because it was like 7 rounds in a row after that
Yeah,
they lost.
that must be quite a blow. I can imagine. It's really
Mm.
hard to sort of keep your composure when big mistakes come out in a team. It's hard to keep a good attitude, etc. Keep yourself from going salty.
Well,
Which I think was their downfall at that point.
to their
That was
credit,
definitely a turning
they've
point.
turned it around a lot. So I think
Yeah,
it might have even been good for them. I mean, I know they're not going to like hearing that, but sometimes losing in that sort of fashion is good for your development to make you a better
yeah,
team.
losing is good for you, winning is good for you. You can always you take away more from a loss than you do from a win. You learn a lot more.
True. I
So,
guess you also put more thoughts into why did we lose as opposed to why did we win.
mm,
Yeah, a lot of the
yeah,
time. So then there was ESWC qualifiers, the event with Arena at Rush, and in the final there, throughout the tournament, let's say you were really sick. You looked like you're gonna fall over and die at one point. So I think I
and
saw you
Ebola.
on the Friday, and you didn't look good.
Yeah, I think that was the worst flu I've ever had in my life. Luckily, I have a doctor mom, so I was treated.
Without
Managed
having
to
to go
come
to
through.
hospital.
Even on the final day, she's like, "Are you sure you want to go?" And kind of looked in the eyes like, "Yeah, I'm not missing this, etc." I went, kind of played half dying, but I still played well. So
Yeah, I think you particularly on train kept your team in the game for the longest time there because you were a little quiet on the first two maps, but
yeah.
train you just sort of seemed to hit another level, and barring one or two situations, you guys probably would have won that map.
I had to use the little energy I had in one burst. I couldn't sort of extend it over that period of time. May have passed out or something from my flu.
So I mean, there was a victory for Energy. Finally, their first victory. I mean, it wasn't a major tournament; it was more a qualifier for another tournament, which hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen next year or something. But
Oh.
um, I mean, from that, were you guys looking at it going like Energy is a threat to us, or were you just looking at going like we had a bad day?
As an individual, I never underestimate any opponent that I'm playing against. I mean, you even saw Nip lost to Vega Squadron in that
Hmm.
important time. Um, some hearts have been broken in this minor and the major qualifier. Uh, so, I mean, you can never underestimate your opponent, no matter their past or what level they play on. So, I kind of always saw Energy as a force to be reckoned with. And they did come and they proved themselves. I mean, they're well deserved for their wins. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say in the next comp, things might change in terms of the result.
Yeah, well, I think you guys are gonna be very motivated to knock them over, considering when we got to ESL Africa Season 2 and then got to Rage, and you guys shared the spoils sort of on in the online group stage. But to be fair, you had a period where Wham was playing because Robbie's
Yeah,
internet went down. You had Sin playing on your team and TC playing because of various issues with Chinese feces. So it was just one of those days. So not a lot could be taken out of that particular game. But when we got to LAN, it almost seemed like Energy's path to the final was a little harder than yours because they had that sort of period against Limitless where it really looked like Limitless were going to drop, going to take cash and potentially it would end up being a 3 map series. Whereas against Vibra, you guys looked a lot more not more controlled and you didn't really look threatened. And I know there was
yeah.
that horrible like technical delay with the server that ESL brought with, which was awful, but
uh,
I mean, going into that final, Energy seemed to have fought a little harder to get there than you guys. Do you think that played a part at all in their motivation going into the game?
um, I think Energy planned on beating Vibora a lot further than what they did. So
Or
I kind of,
limitless?
oh sorry,
Yeah,
Limitless. They're playing
yeah.
Limitless. So and Limitless, they were a strong team, but I think Energy should have put up a better result against them, and they kind of saw that, and that kind of put them at the point. Okay, guys, we need to raise the bar, because we're playing Bravado tomorrow. So I think they kicked themselves up a notch definitely when they played against us, and we kind of had this chilled game on the first day, and it's almost like we had this expectation, which is wrong, that we were going to win. And then when the final came and Energy were really strong, they were playing this strong game against us, and we didn't really know how to sort of counter this. And we eventually got into this mentality where we play to not lose instead of playing to win.
Mm.
Why play in fear of losing rather than playing for the glory of winning? So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like I guess Energy just played the stronger mental game than us. They were more composed, and so they beat us in the end, which was unfortunate for us. But live and learn. So come back for the next one.
Well, as you said just a few minutes ago, sometimes losing is better for you than winning at times in terms of getting better. For
Yeah,
for yourself in the final, there you had a pretty quiet game overall. What was going wrong for you on the server?
yeah, I didn't play well. I think it was like my worst tournament statistic I've ever had. In
Yeah,
fact,
it actually was. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, it wasn't a great tournament for me, but I'm not gonna let it phase me too much. I'm just gonna put in more effort and train harder for the next one. So
Well, you're measured on your overall performance and not just one tournament. Saying,
yeah,
and that being said, I've called you the best player in South Africa before in some content that I've
thank you.
done. I think other people have also. I mean, how do you react to being called the best? Does it make you go like, yeah, I've made it, guys? I'm the shit, or is it something that you don't like hearing? How do you feel about that?
I'm a bit in between. It's nice to hear. Puts a smile on my face. So I mean, well, I'm not the best player in the world yet, so I'd say they're lying. Um, but it's a really nice thing to see as a player and even as a person that the people around you support you and they say nice things to you. It gives me a lot of motivation, and the message definitely does like brighten up my day a bit. So I'll be ever thankful for that.
Cool, man. Well, definitely to a lot of people, best player in SA overall. Just if we look at your skills, your mental composure, as you've been talking about, and to me, also talking to you at the moment, it gives me a little bit more insight into the way you think about the game, which also says a lot about why you've been as strong on the survey as you have been. Because there's also a lot of players who don't put the level of thought in that you put into the way you approach the game. Because I mean, there are also those players who are just like, a rabid dog on a leash, let him go, he'll go kill stuff, and he's not really going to think about it too much. But
Yeah.
um, do you think you have any flaws to your game? I mean, like we've established you're a pretty smart player, that you've got aim, and you're always looking to improve. Where do you feel that you can actually improve there?
I can improve everywhere. Nothing about me is 100%. So I'd like to aim to keep everything about me in a high percentage, kind of balance everything, sort of push myself to become a better player. But I mean, at no point I'm going to say that I've reached my potential. I kind of always have this mentality where I can get better. What's going to stop me from getting better and improving on the things that I know?
Mm.
So, yeah, I hope to grow into a better player, and I'm working on growing into a better player.
Geez, that was diplomatic.
Yeah.
You should go into politics when you're done playing.
Yes, sir.
Well, so I mean, there's like nothing that scratches at the back of your brain where you're like, damn it, I did it again, sort of thing, at all.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of flaws. Kind of kick myself every time I make a mistake or whatever, whether it be in CS. I could have rather done this, could have done that instead. Um, I mean, what a lot of people don't do is they only question why something didn't work. They don't really question why it did work, and if it did work, how can it work better? Could I have done something better than what I did, even though it did work? And I kind of always ask myself that question. That kind of pushes me to improve upon the things that I'm already good at.
Hmm.
So yeah, but you have to ask yourself both sides why it doesn't work either. So I
No,
mean,
exactly.
yeah,
I mean, there's also many situations in Counter Strike where you can go like, well, this worked for me, but 50% of it working was complete luck that the dude's looking the other way or
yeah,
something. And if you try it again, 95% of the time you're going to get
probably won't work.
destroyed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it is an important question to ask. I like the fact that you're thinking about the game that way. So another obvious question going into next year. I mean, there's only really ESEA happening now. There'll probably be OCS, assuming the tournament happens in January. For OCS, is BVD gonna knock Energy over? Are you guys gonna be like fired up and you know ready to knock them off their perch?
With our plans coming up, I think definitely we're not going to be easy at all for Energy to beat us. I mean, we're definitely coming back for the win. I mean, I'm a person that hates losing more than anything else, so definitely I think I hate saying it because then when you lose, it's kind of like, oh well, fuck. So I want to win, and I'm confident that I'm going to win. So yeah.
Well, that's good. I think it's always very telling with teams. It's a lot harder to stay at the top than it is to get to the top. Because when you're
Yeah,
at the top, everyone else wants to knock you down a rung or two. Everyone
yeah,
wants a piece of you. Even the team that's fifth best that shouldn't have a chance of beating you, they're going to be trying because they want to take out the best.
yeah. The
So
hardest part about sports is being on top, not getting there. So
exactly. So I mean, Energy definitely feel like they're at the top right now. I mean, I know you've got a different opinion on that. So for them, it's going to be a thing of trying to stay there. So it almost changes the dynamic slightly, where BVD has been always seen as like unassailably the best. Now that is a question for a lot of people. So the pressure is going to be on Energy to stay there.
yeah. I think Energy do realize as well that when they played against us, they're not playing against the full us. They're playing against the sort of beaten down, non-focused us. So I don't think they're going to disregard us as not being a threat when we're coming into our OCS next year or whatever other tournament that comes up. So both teams will continue practice as usual, trying to go for the next one. I mean, I like to not see myself being in a position when I go into a tournament. I mean, if I come in as last seed or if I come in as first seed, it doesn't really matter. My end goal is I'm there to be first and I'm there to win. So, whether or not we've been on top for long or whatever the case. So I think Robbie in particular has the same kind of perspective as me, in terms of playing against what you call it, a nemesis or
Yeah.
sort of arch opponent. So we'll see. I guess only the results can tell. Future will tell.
So I mean, there's been something made occasionally about bad blood between the teams. I mean, going into the middle state show match, there was they had some video segments where they were talking about that JT and Fady had come over from Carbon, and the players remaining were forced to go to Energy and couldn't be with them. Or I don't know exactly what the whole approach to the narrative was, but throughout the year, a number of people have said that there is a rivalry and it isn't always a friendly rivalry. Are they wrong or are they right about that?
There's a rivalry in the game. I'd say there's no doubt about that, but that's just sports. Same as your Barcelona and Madrid, whatnot. But out of the game, we're all friends. We like chilling with each other, hanging out. Um, so I wouldn't say there's any personal rivalry, just some sports rivalry.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't know about their personal rivalry because I mean, I'm all about good vibes, so I stay away from all that bad
yeah,
vibe.
definitely stay away from the drama. It's easier. Well, I've
Mm.
tried very hard this year to stay away from talking about that sort of rivalry because unless you ask
Uh,
somebody about it, it's a little difficult to really say if it's true or not. But it did add to the story though, going into middle state. So that made it interesting. So last couple questions, and I'll let you get off to your dentist appointment.
mm.
I don't know if we're supposed to mention that, but
Oh, it's a bit painful
so
talking to
I'm glad I spoke to you before your wisdom teeth came out, because like then we're getting the true unfiltered Sonic before it's all taken from you.
it. Unfiltered. Uh, it's funny.
So
Yeah,
we,
some my chipmunk kind of
well,
cheeks.
I don't want to catch you when you can't talk, like cheeks full of cotton wool and all of that. But
uh,
I mean, in saying that there's been some international recognition for your quality as a player, if an international team came to you and said, "Hey, Mr. Aran, They can't say your surname, of course, because they're from another country.
Depends if they're Dutch or
Yeah,
whatnot.
maybe, but they come to you and say, "Hey, we'd like you in our team," and they're like a top 20 team or a top 30 team. Would you go to them, or would you be like, "No, Bravado's my home. I'm trying to get there with my team." And how would you approach something like that?
You know, I've wanted to make a name for a South African team. I've always wanted to do it with a South African team, and I've come so far with this group of people, and we've aligned our ambitions and dreams with one another to sort of focus on an end goal that we all share. That it's sort of like pointless for me to kind of give it all up at this point in time and go to another team just because of the name or a salary or something like that. I
Mm.
see too far in the future for something like that. Um, but I mean, yes, if I got approached by Fnatic, yeah, let's go.
Learn
I'm
Swedish.
joking, yeah. But I mean, I'd say right now, Bravado's my home for quite a period of time still.
Cool. Well, that's good to know. I guess depending on the level of the team, it sometimes may make you think twice. Like you just mentioned, Fnatic. It would be, I guess, what if it's like, oh, Twist remembers this good guy that he used to hang out with. I mean, Stanislaw's crap now anyway. Let's get Sonic.
Gave my sucky free sandwich to him on the bus.
So, free sandwich equals spot in Team Liquid, right?
Oh, compassion goes a long way.
Yeah, it really does. But yeah, I mean that would be funny, but I don't know. Let's see. It's interesting how you've said that you want to go there with the South African team, which I think it speaks to the mindset behind the Bravado project, if you want to call it that. So I think that's exciting. It's exciting to see where you guys do. And talking about exciting, you've dropped a few hints about plans and things for the future. Any final hints about what lies in the future of Sonic and BVD, or have we used up the hint?
We've probably used up all the hint points, but surely if you keep an eye on Andreas's page or just the Bravado page, you should be seeing something pop into your feed quite soon.
Wow. Okay. Well, and then I'm really excited for that.
Oh,
That's going to be interesting.
it's the
So,
only hint you get, Mike.
the only hint I get. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, before you guys went on for that final at ESL Africa, a bunch of when I bumped into you guys there behind the stage, a bunch of the guys said I have like a special love for you, shall we say, as opposed to the rest of the players.
I think it's just my hair.
It
My
could be.
vibrant hair.
I just want to put that out there. No favoritism towards Sonic, but he is Bay, so just saying.
Cool. Thank you.
But hey, thanks for the time, man. I think it's been really interesting. I think a lot of people are going to take a lot out of what you've said in improving their own game and getting better. And for the people watching this as well, go follow Sonic. It's a travesty of justice that I have more Twitter followers than he does. So please go over to @BVD Sonic. You can see the Twitter handle there. Give him a follow and see what he's up to. You are streaming at fairly regularly at the moment as well, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be streaming quite a lot coming up to this month, well, during this month especially, and I've got some plans in store. I don't know if you tuned into my stream last night, all
I
the
popped
tips
in
and
a little
tricks.
bit, but not too long. Unfortunately, I had something else
Yeah,
going on.
that was just quite a brief sort of rushed kind of thing, but I do plan on doing like a series of videos to maybe help out some players and teams, etc., kind of
Awesome.
build on themselves. So yeah,
Well,
keep
that's
some
good to hear.
content pumped out from me. So keep in tune.
Yes, I'm excited to see that. Something I did enjoy a while ago is when you did that 1v1 stream versus Massacre. That
Yeah.
was pretty fun. You should do more of those.
I just want to hear him trash talking over TeamSpeak. It's a funny kid.
Hey, dude, I'll 1v1 you, bro. Come.
Keen, let's go. Cool.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Viewers definitely go and follow Sonic, see what he's up to, and other than that, I think we've covered everything. Any final shout outs or anything you want to say?
Just thanks to all my friends, family, loved ones, especially my supporters. Guys motivate me and keep me up there. So thanks a lot to you, and thank you for the interview.
You're absolutely welcome. It's been an honor and a pleasure. So, really appreciate it. So, guys, definitely check Sonic out, see what he's up to, and look out for the big announcement. Ooh, coming in coming weeks.
Spooky.
So, whatever time you're watching this, morning, noon, or night, have a great time of it, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Bye.